Now, if you want to understand how to get the most out of employees, you need to understand what they need. And one of the best ways to recognize what employees need is to talk a little bit about Abraham Maslow. Now, this is the famous Maslow hierarchy of needs. It's the foundation of the psychology of motivation and a core component in many leadership training programs. And as many of you, I'm sure, already know, the key is that a person cannot ascend to the higher levels of the hierarchy without having the needs at the lower levels met first. For example, a person is unable to prioritize status and recognition at esteem if they're struggling with personal security or health at safety. Now, even the old school way of thinking about the workplace understands the importance of Maslow's hierarchy. Employees need to be provided wages and compensation to meet their basic needs. And we need to ensure that there's physical safety if we want them to provide their best work. And the old school leaders understand that success can't happen if they're not meeting employees' needs. Something we can all agree on. But the problem is they often misunderstand what the extent of those needs actually are, which is why we need to have a version of the hierarchy that is specifically designed for the workplace to create a culture to inspire the highest employee success and performance as possible. Well, for that, introducing Roman III's workplace culture hierarchy. This hierarchy is a variation of Maslow's, but it's designed specifically to create a successful and productive workplace culture by understanding and providing employees what they need. Too often, when we are looking to address challenges in our workplace, we want to jump right in with 2 feet into the area where we see the problem without considering the most important question. What needs to exist first before this can become successful? So let's dig into this hierarchy, shall we? Everything starts here at stage 1, compliance. This stage is where many of the HR procedures, labor laws, industry standards, and administrative processes are incorporated. This is where much of the work supporting equity in the workplace will land, like addressing equitable pay and providing accommodations. So what needs to exist for compliance to become successful? Well, this stage is so much more than just about policies. It's really mostly about addressing job dissatisfaction, ensuring that things like company policies, wellness programs, wages and compensation are not just meeting the legal minimum, but are actually competitive within their sector, sufficient to meet employees' needs, and are fair and equitably accessible to everybody. Now, this level tends to be where a lot of the human resources work starts. And unfortunately, in a lot of businesses, it's also where it stops. This is a critically important stage because it's the foundation, but we have to realize that this is only the first stage. Now, the next stage is psychological safety. This is without a doubt the most overlooked stage in the workplace. This is where all employees are provided an environment where they feel safe to express themselves and feel a sense of trust and mutual respect from the people that they work with. This is where we need to feel safe to share what we need without fear of retaliation or ridicule. Now, the concept of psychological safety was created by Harvard professor Amy Edmondson. Her work primarily focused on the impact of psychological safety in regards to the freedom to speak up, ask questions, and make suggestions without fear or retribution or concerns that their comments might damage their relationships or reputation. Fundamentally, psychological safety is about the ability to be vulnerable. When we feel that we have to posture and avoid asking questions and we're unwilling to speak up, it's because we're afraid to show vulnerability in the workplace. And we're working in an environment where we don't feel psychologically safe. So what needs to exist first, what needs to exist before psychological safety can be successful? Well, obviously, since it's the second stage, you need to have a firm foundation of compliance that addresses job dissatisfaction, not just legal standards. But equally important, you need to have people in leadership positions that are committed to ensuring that people will feel like they can speak up without retaliation. When we talk about the effects of the old school perspective of the workplace and the status quo, the reality is that this is often the killer of psychological safety. When the bosses don't want to be challenged, when coworkers are only out for themselves, when you are expected to always know the answer before the question's even asked, despite maybe not even being given the opportunity to learn or prepare for the question, then this is when psychological safety doesn't exist, or at least doesn't exist at the level you need for staff to be successful. Now, the third stage is where we create inclusion. And this is arguably the most important stage in creating a successful workplace culture. Now, stage 1, compliance, and stage 2, psychological safety, are specifically designed to lead you to inclusion. And stage 4 and 5 are about leveraging the impact that inclusion offers to the workplace. Now, this is really important. The key to remember with inclusion is that it's not solely about creating an environment where traditionally marginalized populations feel welcomed and that like they belong. Inclusion is about valuing and respecting all people, encouraging them all to be successful. Inclusion needs to be about everybody, period. Making everyone feel as if they belong and are valued, respected, accepted, and encouraged to fully participate in the organization. But it's important to state, though, that it will take additional efforts to make people from those traditionally marginalized groups feel included because of the systemic issues that are often inherent in many workplaces. Now, ultimately, employees need to feel like they belong, that they are a person and are seen and encouraged to bring their full self to work. Now, again, this can be the time that sometimes the kumbaya comments come back into the conversation. But really, the truth is, you can't ask for loyalty, initiative, responsibility, and passion if employees feel like a stranger on the outside of the company, like they're a nameless cog in the machine or a disposable engine part. You can't order loyalty. You can only show it through creating belonging, and then they will show it back. And one of the most common mistakes that workplaces make when they're working on DEI or EDI initiatives is they want to jump right into inclusion. But they do that without first asking themselves the important question: what needs to exist first before inclusion will be successful? Have they created the sense of psychological safety and addressed job dissatisfaction to the levels that they need to make their inclusion efforts successful and sustainable? Let's move on now to stage 4, engagement. This is often the carrot that most workplaces see as being the motivation for changing workplace culture. Employee engagement is arguably the single most important factor in creating a profitable and productive workplace. It's been proven time and time again to significantly increase employee performance, talent attraction and retention, customer relations, and organizational profitability. It is a critical factor when exploring organizational change and cannot be overstated of how important it really is. But one of the problems with engagement is how people traditionally understand it. They see it as something that is to be surveyed or something to be measured or something to be studied, which is important, and that's the priority. We need to see it for what it really is, something that needs to be provided, something that needs to be fostered, and something we need to empower in people. Employee engagement can only be fully achieved in an inclusive workplace, a workplace where all staff feel respected, trusted, encouraged, and inspired to fully participate in the organization. When they feel included, they'll be motivated and enthusiastic to engage. Now, this is another place where most workplaces want to jump in from the beginning and start to changes that will improve motivation and engagement. But again, before any initiative will have success in creating engagement, they need to ask the important question: what needs to exist first before engagement will be successful? If employees do not feel like they are included and that they belong, engagement will never last. Now, the last stage is strive. This is where we as individuals strive to improve ourselves and our skills, and where our organizations can strive to improve performance of all employees. There is often a bad habit from leadership that want to jump straight to strive when they see problems with performance or issues with turnover or low productivity. They want to incorporate programs like lean or continuous improvement, and they want to make that happen now. But if you want to change the workplace to be more productive and efficient, and you jump over stages 1 through 4 and try to create change without addressing the foundations required to strive for success, then you're setting yourself up to fail. It's nearly impossible to create sustained improvement at any stage without first addressing all the stages beneath it by asking the important question: what needs to exist first before this will be successful? Do employees feel engaged and have a sense of enthusiasm in their work? Because striving for improvement requires a motivated and eager staff. Anything short of that is not going to work out for you long term. So this is why we often say, to create the workplace we all strive for, you need to build the foundation that will make it sustainable.